I'm Shaun Davis. For the past 7 years, I've built a multi-million-pound social housing organisation. Every day I get a lot of questions on social media asking me about business, growth, mindset, social housing, and I don't always have time to answer them. So I thought today I'd do something a bit different and record a video answering all your questions. So question number one is, what's something I've had to unlearn to grow? I think this is a fantastic question. And the first thing that comes to mind is the power of letting go to grow. So over the last 7 years, I've grown a lot as a leader and I understand the fundamentals of running a successful business. When I first started, I used to do a lot of things myself. I used to be running around like a headless chicken, and I was ignorant to think that I could do everything myself, and I would do it myself, I'd be able to do it better. I quickly realized that by me hiring, leveraging, employing, and actually outsourcing, that was a much more effective way to learn and grow. And here's the thing, grinding 24/7 is not a badge of honor, because just because you're grinding, just because you're busy, doesn't necessarily mean that you're productive. One of the metrics that I track now that I didn't use to track is how productive am I being? Am I actually moving the needle of my business, and are things moving in the right direction? Not just being busy and doing unproductive tasks. And also it's about your self-worth. It's about understanding what your value is to the business. So for me personally, if it's a job less than £500 per hour in my business, I want to outsource it. I want to outsource it, and I want to leverage, I want to coach, empower my team to be able to do the job. I can then get a lot of things and manage the business working on the business as opposed to in the business. And I find that that's a much better, a much more productive way to grow. The first lesson is definitely let go to grow and understand the power of outsourcing as opposed to doing it all yourself. Second question is, what do I do when motivation isn't enough? And I think this is a great question because it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. When a lot of people start, it's like they rely on motivation. And here's the thing with motivation. Motivation comes and goes like Wi-Fi. It comes in bursts, and everyone's motivated when they first start a new business. Everyone's excited when they do something new because it's not the norm. But here's the thing, here's when you really understand your character, and here's when you really will understand whether you're gonna have longevity in this game. And that point is when you hit hardship. And for me, I understood this concept in 2020. So I started my business back in 2018. I was doing rent to HMOs, I was doing service accommodation, everything was going well. Now I left my job on the 28th of Feb 2020. 3 weeks after that, COVID happened and my business literally sunk like a stone. And here's the thing, I had to quickly understand the trait of a successful entrepreneur. And that is number one, to create value, and number two is to solve meaningful problems. I definitely was not motivated at this time. I was in a situation where my back was against the wall, and when your back's against the wall, you can go all out and you can come out swinging, or you can actually retract and basically back down in the corner. I decided to come out swinging, and I was not motivated at all. But here's the thing, I did what I had to do, and I relied on discipline as opposed to motivation. So I think for you to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to rely on discipline and not motivation. Next question is, what did I think success looked like and what does it actually feel like now? Now, this is massively changed for me because when I first started, of course, I wanted the big house, I wanted the flashy car, I wanted to be able to go on holidays whenever I wanted. But here's the thing, the novelty quickly wears off. I got my house, I bought my Porsche a couple of years ago, and literally within a couple of months of having those things, I quickly realized, okay, this is it. Like, I'm here now, I've got it. I didn't feel any different. The novelty wore off, and here's the thing, life goes on. For me, the huge difference that I've realized is that success is not a finish line, it's a feeling. And for me, it's a feeling of being able to live life on my own terms. It's a feeling of being able to provide for my family, for my team. It's the feeling of being able to be accountable and responsible and understand that actually what we're doing is actually making a positive impact on the community. We house hundreds and hundreds of tenants, and we're literally saving lives, we're changing lives on a daily basis. And I've realized, especially in the social housing game, if the money is at the forefront of your mind, you will fail very quickly and you'll sink like a stone because people's lives are at stake. So for me, the people have to come first, your team has to come first. And there's been many times where I've had to put the team first, I've had to put the tenants first, I've had to pay myself last and pay the team first, because that is the reality of running the business. And I take that responsibility very seriously because people are relying on me to pay their mortgages, to pay their rent, and to live their lifestyle. And I really enjoy the responsibility and the accountability of that. And for me, it makes me happy to know that I am creating reliable and stable careers for people to thrive and grow in and hit their own personal goals. Because something else I've realized over the years is that people do not come to work for you. They don't come to work to think, I'm gonna make Shaun rich. They come to work for their own goals, for their own motives. So as a leader, it's my job to ensure that I understand my team's goals, and I understand how I can help them to achieve their goals through the business. And if they can see a clear path of how they can do that through the business, not only will they work harder, but they'll be much more motivated. And for me, that is a huge success, and that's what I value a lot now. Another question is, what's the hardest thing about being your own boss? And it's funny because people always say to me, if I was my own boss, I'll just be lounging around, I'll just be chilling, I'll be on the beach. And honestly, anyone that runs a business knows it's the exact opposite. There's a saying, and it says, if you want to leave your 9 to 5, be prepared for the 5 to 9. And it's so true. And here's the thing with being a boss, you never get to the point where you don't have anyone to answer to. I have my team to answer to, I have landlords to answer to, I have the council to answer to. I can't just go and sit on the beach and do nothing. I'm accountable to my team and even to my residents. There's a duty of care, and I have to make sure that the cogs are turning and things are happening. And you know what, being a boss is not for everyone. I've realized that over the term. It can be very stressful. You've got to understand how you deal with that stress. And for me, I take my personal development very seriously. Your business cannot outgrow your personal identity. You've got to come across hardship. You've got to come across cash flow issues. You've got to come across growing pains, and you've got to understand how to navigate through all this. And that's the reason why I think being a part of a community of entrepreneurs is crucial. You know, 4 years ago, I started the High Performance Academy, and it was literally for this reason. It's because I was running a business, I was feeling very lonely, and I wanted to be surrounded with other high performers, other entrepreneurs, and be able to actually talk these things through, because sometimes talking to your family, talking to your friends is not the solution, guys, because if they don't run a business, they're not going to really understand how they can help you navigate through that stuff. So I think it's very important to be surrounded with like-minded people who actually understand it, you understand business, and you can work for these things together. So I think the hardest thing about being a boss is definitely experiencing loneliness, which is not something I actually personally feel now as I've got the community, but in the early days, that's something that I definitely felt. And starting the High Performance Academy is definitely something that I wish I started earlier as opposed to later. And the second thing is that heavy load of stress and understanding how to manage that. And one thing I would say in order to manage stress is understand how to recalibrate your mind and do things that can just reset you. And for me, that is playing the drums, and that is going to the gym, that is going for a run, it's going for a cycle, and it's doing things that completely switch my brain off so that I'm able to navigate, come back to what I was doing, and actually perform at a much better rate, as opposed to knuckling down and being busy, not productive. How do I mentally reset after taking an L? I love this question because, trust me, one thing about business is you're going to take L's, and you're going to take a lot of them. And it's really important that when you take these L's, you understand how to reframe it. Because here's the thing, perspective is everything. When you change the way you look at things, things begin to change. That's one of my favorite quotes. And it's really important that when you look at an L, when I look at an L, the first thing I do is I look at my own thing. If you're constantly pointing the blame to everyone else, you're not being accountable. And if I'm working with you and I'm constantly saying you're the issue, guess what? I can't change what you do. I can only change what I do. So if I look at what I do firstly and where I went wrong, I can change that instantly and do better next time, which means that I can then control the outcome as opposed to blame it on you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think to myself, what is this teaching me? Not what is this happening to me? Because here's the thing, every L carries a lesson, and the quicker you extract that L is the quicker you can bounce back from it. So next we've got a social housing question, and they've said, how do you pitch social housing to landlords? Oh, okay, this is a good question, and it's something that I've done a lot. So I can definitely give some value on this. So the first thing I do before anything is I build rapport. And if you want to see this in depth, you need to watch the challenge that I did with Sandu, where I basically lived with him. He was a stranger. I lived with him for a week, and I basically stayed with him and got him his first deal. From start to finish, we documented the process. If you haven't watched that already, watch that. I'll put the link around here. And yeah, you gotta understand that if you wanna do business with someone, it's all about them understanding you. It's all about them liking and trusting you as well. And having the confidence that you are the person to do business with. You're the right man for the job. I used to sell cars back in the day. I was in the motor trade, and even selling cars, it has a lot of transferable skills that I've been able to bring in business. And even from back then, I was able to sort of sell a car to someone, and I'd have certain customers that they would just specifically buy from me. They wouldn't want to buy from someone else. If I was on my day off, they'd be like, no, I want to come back tomorrow when Shaun's in because I want Shaun to deal with me. And the reason why they would say that is because they had the level of confidence, they had the level of trust in me, and they actually liked me as a person. Bearing in mind, they could have gone to someone else, they would have got the exact same product. They actually would have got a great level of customer service as well, but They wanted to specifically deal with me because here's the thing, they believed in me. So it's really important that when you're speaking to a landlord, you get them to believe in you. And here's the thing with belief, people don't need to believe in what you're saying. People need to believe you believe in what you're saying. There's a sort of difference there. And when people believe you believe in what you're saying, you come across with a conviction, you know, you're passionate, you're enthusiastic, enthusiasm sells, passion sells. And when you can get that across, that's very important. Now, that's something that you need to work on, because I can't teach you how to find common ground. I can't teach you how to build rapport, because every person has different interests, and it's all about finding out those interests and understanding how you can relate it back to you and how you can be relatable to that person. And that's really important. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is helping the landlord to understand your product, your service is a solution to their problem. Now, how do you do this? You do this by firstly understanding what is their pain points, what has been their experience in property, and why are they now interested in social housing? Why is this now a viable option from them? And if you can get them to a position where they're extracting all their pain points, and you then sell your service as a solution to their pain points, then you're going to put yourself in a position where they want to go ahead with you. And Alex Hormozi, he's got a book, and the slogan of the book is, make your offers so good that people feel stupid for saying no. I think that's a really catchy slogan, and this is exactly how you do that. If you just spend 10 minutes telling me all your problems, and after carefully listening to you, I'll just solve your problem with a solution using my product or my service, then of course, you're gonna be in a position where you're gonna feel stupid for saying no at that point, but it's all about being able to effectively and competently extract that information. And last thing I would say on this is tell them the viable benefits about what social housing is, how it works, the fact that it's government backed, the fact that they get guaranteed rent. What most landlords want is a profitable, zero hassle solution. So you've got to get the landlord to understand how your service can provide that. And that's exactly what it is. One of the things that I'm using at the moment to close landlords is the renter's right bill. So the renter's right bill means it gives the tenant more power, and also it doesn't really give the landlord much security, because you're going to have things like periodic tenancies. All landlords want is a long-term, safe and secure solution to their asset. They don't want people coming in and out every couple of months or every few months. They just want a nice 5-year contract where in the ideal world, they don't get no headache, they don't get no voids, they get paid on time every single month. And because social housing is a game where you get paid directly from the government, it means that number one, you can offer long-term contracts. Number two, you can genuinely offer guaranteed rent. And number three, because you're managing the whole property, if you can convince the landlord to have the confidence in you, then they'll believe that it will be a zero hassle solution. So you're literally covering all 3 points, and then you're putting them in the position where, again, there's very little reason for them to say no to your offer. Another question I've got here is, what is the difference between supported accommodation and temporary accommodation? And these are two strategies that I do. Supported accommodation is a bit more complex, it's more high level, and there's a bit more red tape to get involved. And essentially, you're housing the homeless. You're housing people that are, number one, unemployed. Number two, they have a mental health need. Your job and your responsibility is to, number one, house that tenant, and number two, provide support to that tenant. And it's not just random support, it's specific support based on their needs. So when the tenant comes in, you have to do a full risk assessment, ensure they understand exactly what needs and how you're going to be supporting that tenant. And then you also have to create a support plan for that tenant. And that support plan is tailor-made. And that's essentially what the support worker will go into the tenant with every week to support them. And the whole aim is to get them from homeless to in our accommodation, which is a safe and secure environment. And within 6 to 12 months is to get them back out into independent living. Now, there's two great things about supported accommodation. Again, the first one is that you get paid directly from the government, government backed, and the government's the only organisation that cannot become bankrupt. So in terms of a viable business, it's great. There's lots of demand. This year, I checked the stats, there's an extra 1 million people that are actually on universal credit. Now, this is obviously not a good stat to brag about. However, the way I see it is there's a problem, there's a demand, and I can actually be a part of that solution. I can be a helping hand through my business to be able to house these people, to be able to work on their mindset, work on their skill set, and ultimately getting them back into employment within 6 to 12 months. But here's the thing, there's obviously a process that tenants have to follow to go from high mental health and unemployed to then back into society straight away. Most of the time is not a viable solution. So supported accommodation is a huge stopgap in the market, which provides the service, provides the accommodation, gets people off the streets, and then within 6 to 12 months, we can make a huge difference. Now, temporary accommodation is actually my favorite because it's nationwide. Supported accommodation works different in different councils. I only do supported accommodation specifically in Birmingham, but With temporary accommodation, it's nationwide. And what I love about a temporary accommodation, it's actually a better model to start out with because there's no support, which means that there's less operation costs, less staffing costs. And also as well, you're dealing with families. You're not dealing with high level mental health like what you deal with in supported accommodation, which obviously comes with its own challenges and hardship. With temporary accommodation, you're dealing with families, and the families are typically a mum and kids, and maybe a mum and dad and kids. So you don't typically get any trouble with temporary accommodation tenants. They're just very grateful. And the reason why I think this is a viable business model, because it has less operational costs. And once the tenant is in that property, there is literally minimal operations. So what it means from a business point of view, if you really want that location freedom, which is what a lot of people want, especially since COVID, this business gives you that opportunity to be able to scale nationwide, minimal operation costs, and then you can have the time, location, and financial freedom as a result. And again, I've done a full A to Z breakdown on temporary accommodation. I'll put the link somewhere here for you. Watch that video if you haven't already. Another question is, what's one thing you would outsource immediately if you started again? And for me, there's two things. The first one is bookkeeping and accounts. Now, guys, I really struggled with outsourcing when I first started the business. I was trying to do everything myself. I was trying to penny pinch and save costs, which in the long run really sabotaged my success and actually slowed me down. I don't know why I was trying to become a bookkeeper and input things and trying to figure things out, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And that's one thing that if I was starting out again, I wouldn't even entertain it. I would just outsource it straight away, because at the end of the year, when you're trying to do your books and your accounts are a mess, which mine was in my first year of business, it's an absolute nightmare trying to figure things out. And also something else I learned the hard way is my accountant ended up charging me more money because he had to then go through all my books and basically redo everything again from scratch because it was all wrong. So guys, learn from my mistake, get a bookkeeper or an accountant straight away that can manage your books. The second thing I would outsource straight away is admin and lead generation. Now, here's the thing, for me, I like to focus on high value tasks as opposed to low value tasks. So low value tasks are admin, research, sending emails, especially when you're doing social housing. You'll be on the phone to the council. Sometimes that can take like 45 minutes to an hour. Now, if you're a person that you want to get involved in social housing, or you just started any sort of business, I'm guessing if you was like me, you'd have a job or you have other commitments that you have to tend to on a daily basis. So what that means is you don't have an infinite amount of time. It means that time is a limited resource for you. So if you have 1 or 2 days off a week, with me, I was in the multi-trade, I had 1 day off a week. Tuesdays was my day off, and that was a day where I would go absolutely crazy with taking action, taking massive action. But here's the thing, taking action on the right things, taking action on the things that would move the needle, as opposed to just being busy and not productive. And why I did that from early is by having a VA. Now, virtual assistants are great. I've got 4 VAs at the moment, and it works amazingly well. They're super hardworking. It's a super low-cost, effective option. And what I love about VAs, it's not just for people that are starting out, it's for businesses of any sizes. And it's a very effective option. So when I first started my business, I had to ensure that the Tuesdays that I had off work was super productive. So my VA's job was to ensure that she packed my diary in advance. So she spent all the time, in the day on the phones for 45 minutes. She spent all the day following up emails. She spent the day chasing landlords, chasing agents, doing all that. So that when I have my day off, my diary was packed and I was doing high value tasks that move the needle. And I didn't have a VA from the very start. I had it like 6 months in, and that's something that I wished that I did from the very start. And that's something that I would highly recommend, any business owner to do, because they can focus on admin and lead generation, and that will move the needle on your business very quickly. Now, the last question is service accommodation better than temporary accommodation? Oh, this is a hard question, and I think it's subjective, because I know people that are smashing it in service accommodation, but for me personally, with my goals and my needs, there's no comparison. One of the best things I love about temporary accommodation is the operation costs. So lower startup costs, there's no tenant marketing. So you've got to think with service accommodation, you've got to spend all the money getting the property ready, and then you've got to put it on the online travel agents and hope that you get booked. Or if you've got contractors, you've got to put it out there and hope that it gets booked. Whereas temporary accommodation, guess what? There is zero tenant marketing. You get the tenant in advance. And that for me is a factor that I love, because it gives me the confidence to go out there, to get multiple properties and close deals faster. And it also gives a great level of confidence to the landlord as well. The second thing is operation wise. Now, I used to do service accommodation. I had a decent service accommodation business prior to 2020. So I understand all the fundamentals and the operations that goes into service accommodation. Now, service accommodation is a hospitality business. You've got guests checking in and out all the time. And for me personally, when I was doing it, I found it to be quite a lot of hard work in terms of having to constantly explain house rules and how things work to the guests, because obviously checking in, they might only be there for like one night, etc. So you need to make sure you've got someone on call 24/7 to tend to the guests' queries. Now, with temporary accommodation, you might have someone in for months. A lot of the time it's 6 months plus, if not years. So what that means is operation-wise, it's very minimal, and we've systemized it in a way where if a tenant calls with a query, we make one phone call, or we'll get a VA to make one phone call, and whatever the issue is, maintenance-wise, it all gets boxed off because of a maintenance company that we're partnered with. So it just gives me the level of location and time freedom that I always wanted and wished for, as opposed to service accommodation where I have to keep worrying about guests checking in and out, guest reviews, lost keys, managing the cleaning team, making sure that cleans are done correctly, on time, to a good standard, all these different factors. It's not the level of work that I wanted long term, because here's the thing, if you can get the same reward for lower work, why would you not do it? The final factor I would say comparing temporary accommodation to service accommodation is the fact that temporary accommodation is consistent. For me, financial security is a huge thing. I wanted to be able to budget and plan and know exactly what I'm getting for a property. If you close a service accommodation property today, you're working on projected figures, not actual figures. Whereas because we get the rates from the council in advance, it means that when I close a temporary accommodation property, I know exactly what I'm going to be getting for that property for the next 12 months, and it's going to be consistent every single month. So guys, let me know in the comments what you thought of this Q&A. I get a lot of questions in my DMs on a daily basis, so I thought it'd be beneficial of me doing this. And if you guys like it, I'll do a lot more. If you've got any other questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below and I'll answer them on the next video. I talked earlier about loneliness in entrepreneurship, and it is a real thing. You need to be surrounded with like-minded people. You need to be surrounded with other high performers. I'd actually go as far as saying this is crucial for your success. It will propel your success a lot further and a lot quicker than you just trying to figure things out yourself and trying to be alone and suffering in silence. So if you want to be a part of a community with like-minded people, people that are thriving, people that are pushing themselves to the limits and actually trying to get to that next level, and also you want to get involved in temporary accommodation, feel free to reach out. I do have a mentorship program that I run in the High Performance Academy, so let me know, click the link in the bio, and I'll see you in the next video.